Men that have cheated, why did you do it?
I broke up with a and she said I didn't know that was possible. I started seeing other people.
Because I was young and self-centered and didn't really love her, and also on these don't excuse cheating, but they do describe the reality of my situation as a weak man.
Lack of emotional maturity and confidence.
There was no way I would have passed grade 12 otherwise.
I think for me it boiled down to being checked out emotionally, but without the spine or backbone to end it. The general excuse I used to make myself feel better about the actions were we weren't compatible anyway. But that had nothing to do with the damage I caused to the heart. I'm a little more remorseful and try to be considerate these days, but I fully expect karma to come throw the egg on my face someday.
Because I was trying to find value and my self-worth in sleeping with women. Growing up, I was far from being a ladies' man. In college, I worked on myself to improve my self-confidence, as all my life I had been longing to have someone who liked me back. All I ever wanted was to have a girlfriend. As my self-esteem grew, so did my luck with the ladies. Eventually, I was able to get a girlfriend, someone who was good to me, but I wasn't satisfied. I continued to look for validation from other women, which turned into cheating on her. I thought that I had discovered self-confidence because I could be more social and was more outgoing, but I realized that on the inside, I was still insecure. Growing up in my family, there were no good examples of healthy relationships either. All my uncles were womanizers. This probably had an impact on me as well.
Because I was immature and still acted like a teenager.
Jumping the track on Rainbow Road isn't cheating, Billy, it's strategy.
Out of anger, frustration, and stupidity. I miss her every day.
Because my wife would get and beat me.
It's very addictive being wanted. Especially if you aren't often. The shame makes it worse, strangely enough. You can't really talk to anyone about being tempted or even crossing the line. There's no support system from your friends or family that tell you you're an idiot. And being addicted, it's very thought-telling yourself.
I was really into partying and she wasn't. We were both science majors and smart, we both loved running, it was great. But we didn't have fun together the way I thought we would. A girl I was hooking up with the year before came onto me at a party, I went with it. Much regret. Never told her, and a month later she cheated on me, so I broke up with her. I was like 19, shameful.
In LTR, after having to ask for years. Then having that I did scrape up be the same 3 position in the same order. There was no for me, though I performed every time, mostly because I like it. Never having her initiate or even show the slightest interest in intimacy, not just but any kind of intimacy. Years of not being show any kind of value at all, even though I was sole income source, and great father, and a helpful husband. After years of seeing that my only value was in the money I made. Told to pick up more overtime, and spend more time away from home and the kids, after taking a little off because I was underfoot too much. I then worked so much, 70 hours a week minimum, that I ended up spending a lot of time working directly with a very lovely lady. I was spending more time with her than with my wife and kids. She made me feel appropriate and seen. She was kind and funny, always willing to listen to how I felt and what I thought. We bonded and became very close friends, until one day it became more than that. For a few months I felt alive. I was happy. I was finally getting the emotional and physical intimacy that I had craved for years. Someone valued me for who I was and not what I could for her. I owe her so much for helping me see how miserable I was and that I deserved better for myself. She was the one that showed me that I was slowly dying in the life I was living. That is when I knew I needed out.
I'll fall on the sword here. You want an honest answer, so here goes, and #X200B. My wife and I started dating when I was 18. Things were good for a long while, and we had a pretty active life. One day, after over 2 years of dating, she felt convicted over us having before we were married. I asked, is our not being married the only thing holding things back from being what they were? And she said yes. I loved her, so I figured why not take the next step, and I proposed to her that forward to the fall when we finally got married, and nothing changed. On our wedding night, nothing. I figured we were both tired from the wedding and reception, so no big deal. For the first month afterward, nothing. I asked what was wrong and why weren't we connecting, and she couldn't give me an answer. This went on for months, and I started looking at more frequently to get a day she checked my browser history and confronted me on my use. This turned into a confrontation about our lack of a life, and her inability to communicate with me what the block was. I tried candles and music. I tried nice dates. I tried massages. Anything my young mind could muster. It all just ended up with her just going to bed. I remember asking her what she expected me to do, since she didn't want to have with me and she didn't want me looking at, not trying to justify but I was getting nowhere with her. In the first 6 months of our young marriage, I think we had maybe 1 to 2 tried doing counseling at the church we were going to, and we got nowhere with that as well. At this point, I think it was maybe 7 to 8 months of being married and things still weren't changing. There was a woman I worked with that I ended up getting closer to because we worked in the same department. I was venting one day out of frustration and she expressed interest. It was a long time ago, so I don't remember exactly what she said, but it caught my attention. A month or so later, she, jokingly, invited me to her house. I went, and we had. I remember feeling bad immediately after. I took the time to muster up the courage and confessed it to my. She was devastated, and we took some time apart, but she didn't want to leave me. We did counseling again, but nothing changed. At that point, I was ready to call it quits, and I told her as such. She ended up having a conversation with a lady at church that changed her mind in a way I couldn't. We apologized to each other, and she acknowledged how her rejection on a consistent basis almost destroyed our marriage, and I apologized for doing something I knew would hurt her. I truly did love her, but I felt neglected, and because of that, I had a lot of ups and downs, but we're still married to this day. I'm really grateful to the woman she talked to at church, because whatever she said to my wife made the light bulb go off. Now that I'm older, isn't nearly the issue it once was, but it almost killed our marriage. TLDR, wife wouldn't have after getting married, and I met someone that would. I tried to get her to come around, but she wouldn't until I cheated. She chose to stay with me and we worked it out. It's been 15 years now.
You're not likely to get many honest answers because of the inevitable pile on that will fact. This comment is likely to result in a pile changed phrasing to more accurately reflect what I'm thinking.
Teenagers are and
was with a woman to try and tell myself I wasn't. Wanted to make my family happy. I feel terrible for doing it and I still kick myself for not being honest about who I am because I hurt people. I did it more than once. I feel bad for lying to her and everyone and causing a lot more drama than was necessary. So yeah, I wasn't able to be honest with myself, which in turn made me a cheater. I'm good now, but I still feel bad about what I did. Wasn't right.
I warned them not to let me be the banker. My hands are just too sticky.
I got a boyfriend and then girls started noticing me. It was an all-round confusing time, and I only added to the chaos.
I was young and immature enough to be susceptible to all the pop culture messaging that says being a player makes you cool. One night when I was out getting super with my buddy, I met a girl and decided I wanted to be cool. Woke up the next day feeling awful. Came clean to my girlfriend. I was so impressed by her not leaving me, I decided to propose a few months later. After several years and a divorce, I've learned 2 important lessons. 1. Just because someone says the words, "I forgive you," doesn't mean that they actually mean it, and they could still bring up your mistakes years later every time you get in an argument. And 2. Just because someone does one really amazing thing, like forgiving you, doesn't mean you should ignore all the other unrelated problems in your relationship.
Because you have grown so distant from your partner that it doesn't feel like cheating. In fact, being with your partner is the part you feel guilty about. That is what feels like cheating.
Wanted to try something new. Needless to say, the relationship went bust thereafter.
The biggest mistake I've ever made. But it was a long-distance relationship and I was in college. It was a great girl though, my great white buffalo.
I told my ex-wife's mum it was a bad idea, but she didn't listen.
I was looking forward to seeing some guys' answers, but sadly no one seems to be honest. Shocker.
You need to get a girlfriend to cheat, nerd face.
I tripped and fell into her.
George Costanza in the wild.
I don't think that classifies as cheating then.
I had that once, weirdest thing ever. I spent about 2 weeks preparing for the eye though that I had a rebuttal for every objection. I never even thought that no was an option. What? No, we're not breaking up. I just stood there dumbfounded and then went and got year later. I took a job in Europe, put my stuff in storage and told her the lease was up at the end of the month.